Okay. Hi, algebra. I am going to do two of the problems from page 9. I picked one of the open-ended ones and one of the multiple choice ones to do. I will post the answer key so you can see them all, and if you have further questions on it, you can ask me those in Google Classrooms. So number 2, we're solving by completing the square. This is all set up for completing the square. I've got x's on this side, number on that side already. So we can start with the completing the square process, which means I go off to the side, I'm gonna take half of the b value, and then I'm gonna square it. That's the magic number that I'm going to add to both sides. I like to circle it. You'll see in my notes it's circled. That's really just my reminder when I put it in there that I'm adding it to this side so that I can create a perfect square trinomial. I can't forget to add it to that side too, because we've got an equal sign and we've got to keep the equation balanced. Now, you can go through the whole process of factoring this, but if you create a perfect square trinomial, you can save yourself all this work by knowing that once that's factored, it's just gonna look like x minus 6 in parentheses squared. It's always gonna be the same sign as that and half of that, okay? Now, the only reason I don't really care about the negative over here is because I'm gonna end up squaring it, so this is never gonna be negative, so I just don't bother writing it. But in here, it matters, okay? On this side, I get a 40, I add it together. And now we're where we were a couple pages ago, end of page 5 or 7, something like that, end of page 7. We take a square root of both sides. Don't forget the plus or minus. The square cancels the square root. X minus 6 equals plus or minus square root of 40. Finish solving for x. When I say finish solving for x, I mean get x alone. X is not alone if it still has a minus 6 on that side. Now, we would typically be done here, except that can be simplified. So we have to simplify the radical. This was chapter 8, simplifying the radical. The biggest perfect square that goes into 40 is 4. 10 times, 4 times 10 is 40. And the square root of 4 is 2. So my final answer, x equals 6 plus or minus 2 square root of 10. There's 2 answers there. 6 plus 2 square root of 10 and 6 minus 2 square root of 10. Number 4 says if x squared plus 2 equals 6x is solved by completing the square, an intermediate step would be. So we're not actually going to take it all the way to here. We're just going to start the process for completing the square. This is not set up for completing the square. I want x's together, number without the x, the constant on the other side. So I'm going to start by subtracting 6x. This is not a like term to either of those. If I was factoring, this would be where I'd want to be, okay? I'd start my x and all that, but this doesn't factor. Subtract the 2 over. Now we're ready to complete the square. I've got x's on this side, constant on that side. I go off to the side. I'm going to take half the b value and square it. 2 things you do to it. Cut it in half, square it. I'm going to add that to both sides. You might hear Charlie. Now I could do the whole thing where I have to factor that off to the side, but if I know I created a perfect square trinomial, then I know that this factors to x minus 3 squared. On this side, I'm gonna get a 7. And actually, I was gonna continue, but it's a multiple choice question, and this is my answer. Because that's where they stopped. They didn't actually solve for x. They said an intermediate step would be. That was choice 2. Okay, so I'm going to stop that video and I will start page 10. I know. I'll start page 10 in my next video. Maybe after this guy goes in for a nap.